Well, it's great to be back with Natasha Donn again for the news review. Pardon me, from the Portugal resident. Natasha, how are you this morning?
Everything's cool.
Yes,
As
and you've got.
cool as it can be.
We were just getting ready this morning to talk about your 3 news picks, which we do every Friday morning live, and then it's re-released later on in the afternoon. But it's lovely to be live because we can hear what other people think about the news that's going on in Portugal, and you've 3 top news stories to take a look at. But we were chatting before the show got started this morning about your randy neighbour. What's going on? What's going on?
No, it's just they don't really speak very good English. So when I said, don't come to the door because I've got to be doing a podcast and it goes out live, I'll come to you. She said, do not worry, I will be Randy.
I will be Randy and ready for you. Okay, and this is not a Portuguese person, by the way. We're not being rude to our hosts here. This is another nationality altogether who you're helping later on today, Natasha, as a leading light in your community, as well as the news community and over at the Portugal resident. So what's captured your eye this week? I think we really liked talking about the old president, and the new one seems to be making quite a good job of things, does he not?
He's such a sincere man. So what he's been doing is he promised he would do this. He has been leading what he calls an open presidency this week. So he's been going to the areas that were devastated at the end of January, first couple of weeks of February by the terrible storms. He's been going everywhere, Coimbra, Leiria, Batalha, all these places. And and it's very good, really. It's a very good idea because he's basically been following what the government no longer talks about, which is all these people, all these businesses, all these lives were absolutely turned upside down by the storms, and which were told by the Prime Minister within a few days of the disasters that, help would be at hand and it would come instantly and everybody would be fine and the economy would continue and all this sort of nonsense. And then they were basically left in a mire of bureaucracy, which he said wasn't going to be evident, and the bureaucracy would be made much simpler, but it hasn't been. And so a lot of these people are desperate still for help, or the money that they were told would be coming through, and it hasn't come through. So the president has decided that he would do this week-long initiative in order to focus on the fact that still so much needs to be done, and that he is going to hold the government's feet to the fire, I think you call it. Horrible feet.
He's doing his job, is he not? Isn't that the idea?
I think he's doing his job in a very gentle way. I mean, unfortunately, I put this story up trying to show him as a very quiet but committed to the country kind of man. And one of the comments on Facebook was something like, "Oh, this man is so boring. This is going to be like watching paint dry for the next 5 years." Well, to a certain extent, it might. Yeah, it might be. Oh, here comes Duck again. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Yes, here's the duck.
Okay. No, so it might be boring. It's true. It might be boring for the next 5 years. But you know what? With the world that we have at the moment, boring is kind of relaxing. At least he's kind and gentle. He hasn't got a bad word to say about anyone. When he was asked about, I think he was asked about the war or something, and he didn't say anything that I'm sure Marcel might have said. He just said, wars are not the answer. And let's just talk about something better.
Well, this is the quote. Wars are not the solution, he told reporters. This is so grandfatherly. They do not resolve conflicts. They make them worse. It is only diplomacy and dialogue that finds solutions so that people can live in peace. And we need to live in peace. What a lovely reminder. Enough of all the bad news, he said. I'm loving the cut of his jib, and I think you are too, Natasha.
Yeah, I think he's just a gentle, kind man who brings things back down to brass tacks. Oh, look, there's more ducks. Who brings things down to brass tacks and tries to, if you think about it, when you do speak to Portuguese people, they do bring things down to brass tacks. They're not that bothered about the international context because it doesn't tend to touch us other than in these ghastly consequences of, rising fuel and stuff. But, I don't know. Maybe I look at things too simplistically, but when people complain about fuel rising and things, I think, well, come on, we can go to bed at night. We don't expect a missile to come through our roof.
Quite.
I think, having to pay a bit more for fuel is a very small price.
Yes.
We're not losing our relatives or being hounded out of our homes.
Indeed, for what we think or say. Absolutely. And this, just concluding on the president there, his quiet central walkabout pushes government to work harder. You mentioned it. The phrase is the open presidency. This is him getting in touch with I think it's a really good initiative, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's basically what it means is he's instead of just sitting in Lisbon and pontificating or meeting dignitaries or going on trips around the world, he's actually meeting the people and trying to understand what they need, why they haven't got it, and how he can maybe be a conduit for them getting it.
Can't argue with that. That is fantastic. There you go. PortugalResident.com. The link for that particular article is there on the screen for you now. Let's move on to another. I was really shocked about this, I have to say. I think it was a national disaster, what happened on the roads of Portugal over the Easter weekend. It's not unusual, is it, for many Portuguese people to take to the roads to visit relatives and get out and about. But this was a particularly terrible year for casualties on the road. Not just deaths, 20 deaths, but many people injured as well.
Oh, loads of people injured. And I mean, some very seriously injured. We never really hear of the consequences of these serious injuries, but I think the fact that they're called serious tends to mean they're pretty much life limiting, I would have thought. Not limiting, life impacting. They're not going to be people that are just in hospital for a few days.
Yeah, no, not just cuts and bruises.
Need, all kinds of rehabilitation. They might be people that actually aren't dead, but are near to death.
And the especially sad story of the German family. The entire family came for a holiday here in Portugal and were killed on the roads here. What do you make of this? Because it's not unusual. It's almost like people know there are going to be deaths on the road at Easter here in Portugal.
Well, any national holiday really. But the thing is about this family, it was very interesting because it was such a disaster. I presumed that the German press would have the names of the people and the whole terrible story, because we've had situations like this before. We had a whole Portuguese family wiped out. Again, I think it was probably on the IC1 again. They were going from the Algarve to wherever they had come. They lived in a part of England. And anyway, that was all over the English press as well, because they lived in England. So I looked in the German press, because it's so easy with online and everything, and with translation apps, looked in the German press, and the bizarre thing was the German press kept saying how awful it was that this whole family had gone, but they didn't mention who they were. So I was thinking, I presume they might have been people who are quite important and nobody's wanting to give their identities. I just don't know. Because if they were people who were just general people who lived, next door to somebody else who was randy, they would say, oh, it's terrible that I can't see, my neighbors come home from their holiday.
Nothing of that kind in the press. The total numbers here, as well as the 20 deaths, the GNR and PSP were reporting back on their weekend of action, because there's always a police campaign as well, isn't there, to do the exact opposite of what actually happened, which is to keep casualties down and incidents. But they saw 53 people seriously injured in roughly 2,300 accidents. We're not talking about a massive country here, but 2,300 accidents. A Portuguese driver in their late 60s who appears to have pulled out of his land on the IC1, colliding with the rental car driven by the German father there, who just arrived in Portugal so
that's the next question. Was this Portuguese man drunk, or was he having an AVC or whatever they call it, a stroke? Or why did he pull out? Was he just overtaking, in which case he was dangerous driving? Anyway, he's been carted off to hospital. I think he was airlifted to Santa Maria in Lisbon. So obviously he wasn't in very good shape either. And we haven't heard any more since then about...
Another 52 people in hospital of the carnage is not, that word gets overused, but it's not an unfair choice of words in this instance. Last Easter weekend here in Portugal, and 800 described as lightly injured. It's unbelievable.
I know, it's ridiculous. And then within a day, I think, of these ghastly accidents, these poor university kids in, where was it, Coimbra, were coming, I think, home after a night out, again, not listening to any any advice that's always given, don't drive fast, don't drive after you've been out on the town, blah, blah, blah. These poor guys, they come down a hill and somehow go into a skid. They skid along the walls of these buildings and then come into connection with a gas point that just explodes the entire car. 2 of them are killed. I mean, they're just burnt to death. Luckily, one managed to sort of roll out of the car.
Incredible.
Then the whole building went up by this gas point, and 2 girls in the top floor are now in a very serious condition. They weren't burnt, but they had terrible smoke inhalation or something.
Absolutely unbelievable.
And that's just another night out in Queenborough.
You know what? I was walking my dog a few weeks ago in my small village here, and I heard like an ungodly sound, a scraping of metal. And it was some kids who turned their car over coming home late. And the most bizarre thing, I called 112 and reported it, and an ambulance was on its way, and I was able to discern. I didn't want to get too involved because I thought my poor, my lack of Portuguese fluency would make things worse rather than better. But I made sure that an ambulance was on its way. The 112 service was brilliant. And as I made my way towards the incident, a local chap said to me, it was like, it's just some kids who've turned their car over, as though that was like quite normal. That it was the sort of thing that happens.
But unfortunately, it is what happens.
It would appear to be
really is what happens. Cars are, often when I get on a Saturday, when I go to the market, you'll see a car on its head in the fields because somebody's come around a corner too fast. I don't know where the people are, because they often struggle out of the car and run off because they're usually over the limit. But I mean, the driving in this car, sometimes you think that would put people off.
Well, that's what I wanted to mention as well. Yes, well, I think you've written about how the emphasis may be moving away from other tourist destinations for the German market towards Portugal, but it's not going to be good, is it? We've had this German family wiped out on the roads of Portugal, and before that, with the Gloria funicular, I think some of the casualties, if not fatalities, were from Germany as well. With that, this is not what we want people to be hearing about in Germany, is it? And something you hope is being done. Do you sense that the government are serious about dealing with reckless and dangerous driving and this pattern and habit we seem to have in Portugal?
Well, they say they are, but then you saw that the Prime Minister was recording a stupid video telling everybody how clever he was, sitting in the back seat of a car without a seatbelt. And then he was talking to his driver, who was also clearly without a seatbelt, although the Prime Minister's office has said, now listen to this, he was wearing his seatbelt under his jacket. I tried to think about how can you get into a car, put your seatbelt on, and then put your jacket on. You can't do it.
No.
So
that's great.
That was another load of complete baloney.
Yeah, I say great journalism there, Natasha. You actually went and tried it.
No, I just thought about it. And then I did write in my story. It's a physical impossibility.
Extraordinary.
And anyway, why would anyone do such a stupid thing?
Well, yes, indeed. The minister here, as we can see on the screen.
So now we have this great guy who is the ex-chief of, the ex-chief of the PJ criminal police.
Who you've spoken about before. Yes, this man.
And he has said instantly after this ghastly Easter that the Interior Ministry is going to present strategic road safety package very soon. So that's great. Now, then I saw on the news, on the evening news, that it might involve more radars, and it might involve more kind of CCTV coverage of the roads in order to see people who are speeding and then alert the police force of that area to maybe intercept them. But you know what we were talking about before we came on air? Why doesn't he take a leaf out of the book of the Nordic countries, where when you're caught speeding or when you're caught drinking, you don't just get points off your license or a fine. You actually get a jail sentence that you have to serve at weekends.
You're locked up for the weekend, are you?
Yeah, for every weekend, and so it completely. I mean, when I say that's something that happens in the Nordic countries, I only know that from when I was much, much younger and I visited Norway, and I was told all this This was in
Right.
Oslo at the time.
Yes.
And that was why no one ever in Oslo goes out to dinner driving their own car, because there's no point.
Well, you would imagine, wouldn't you, that the threat of imprisonment has an impact on people's behaviour.
Particularly as our prisons are no joke.
Right.
They're not, lovely. I mean, because the Nordic prisons apparently are quite nice. It's just
it's like IKEA.
It's just that it's not nice to be locked up for the weekend. But the fact is, they are perfectly comfortable, whereas our prisons aren't.
Well, there you go. There's an idea. Other ideas, very welcome. Do let us know in the chat and in the comments. And please subscribe if you're watching the Portugal Resident podcast on YouTube. Do subscribe and get the notifications. Join us live on a Friday morning, and there's also the big interview which comes out on a Wednesday afternoon as well. In the campaign over the Easter weekend, before we conclude on this, Natasha, Public Security Police, the PSP, detected 693 speeding vehicles during Police Always Present Safe Easter 2026 campaign between the 27th of March and April 6th. It's just a bad time to be on the roads generally. Officers issued 611 fines for failing to have mandatory vehicle safety inspection and 285 for no insurance. So clearly, as well as the interesting and very different driving culture on the roads, loads of people are driving around illegally, it would appear, as well.
Yeah, and without doing their MOTs. Because something else happened, which I don't really understand. There's now no need to put the fact that you've got insurance or MOT on your windscreen like we did in the old days.
Right. Yes, the little stamp. Yeah.
So then there's no, when you pass a car, you can't, even if you pass it when it's parked, you don't know whether it's got insurance or MOT. Whereas in the old days, you always did. And then police could have been, they would have much more ease in checking all these things.
Well, presumably it's on a database now, and they were able to nick a few people, as it were, as we say in the UK, over that campaign weekend. And maybe because this man does come from a police background, the Interior Ministry, he will want to see something done about this, and we'll look forward to much safer Easters here in Portugal.
Well, as you say, it is such a bad image of the country that is trying to attract people to come on holidays or even to come and live here. It's such a bad image that somebody's got to do something. But it's sort of baked into this culture that I don't know any Portuguese that doesn't drink and drive. I really don't.
Thing to say, isn't it? For sure. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a cultural thing. Yeah. And when people say it's like the UK in the 70s or 80s, that's part of what they're talking about, is it not? I think that's
Probably.
that kind of culture on the roads there. Yes.
I mean, we talk about the UK in the 70s and 80s, where certain parts of the UK, like where my mum lives in Dorset, everybody drinks and drives, as she said, because you never see a policeman. And they're all in their 90s or 80s, and they're all creeping around the hedgerows as drunk as skunks. But they're not having accidents, amazingly.
No, quite extraordinary. Okay,
it's here that we've got this crazy combination of drinking and speed.
Yes, it is the driving style as well that people need to get used to when they come to Portugal. It's a bit of a Marmite thing. Some actually like it. I've heard of Americans preferring the how you have to be kept on your toes, as it were, and alert because of the driving culture here, and others who are just terrified by it. Let us know what camp you fall into in the chat, if you will. The final news item we're looking at today, your final pick for the news review here with Natasha Donn for the Portugal Resident podcast. This is very interesting, Natasha. Something a little bit different here. A government orders study on installing renewables in old mining areas. Please tell us more about this.
Well, I don't know more about it than I actually wrote, but it was just such an inspired idea, because we've got all these situations throughout the country where the government is trying to put like massive, get the permissions for massive solar farms or wind farms over beautiful countryside where loads of local people then rise up in horror and fury. And then you've got a lot of areas where there has been mining in the past. The areas are completely blighted. They're polluted. They're not used by anything. And I think this Minister of Environment and Energy is very clever. She's certainly got a very clever face, but she really does look clever. She looks like she works it all out, because she did say sometime last year, she said, we can't go on pushing projects where local people don't like them. And she's absolutely right. You can't go on pushing them because local people band together. They then get fundraising to help their causes, and they often get injunctions at critical moments, and so projects are then delayed, and then funding is delayed, and then investors pull out, and there's all sorts of mess. If you actually decide on putting renewable energy projects in areas that are already ruined, you are saving all that hassle. And I think this is what she said. I can't remember, because we have to write at such speed all the time, but she said, these areas, often marked by environmental liabilities and use limitations, represent an opportunity for clean energy projects because they're developed areas avoiding the use of land with higher agricultural, forestry, or ecological value.
It makes sense. Doesn't it make sense?
Because this minister, I'm sure it's not somebody else at the ministry. It will be the minister. So I think it's a fantastically clever idea.
I agree. And so we're talking about old quarries, old mining areas. Why not continue the? Well, I suppose effectively the land has already been spoiled, so it can't be spoiled again.
Horribly spoiled.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, we've got areas. Oh my God, Urgiceira. Where is Urgiceira? It's because obviously everything for me is up north. Hang on, it is Urgiceira. Hang on.
Oh no, this parts of the country. Absolutely. Well, she's saying,
I don't know where it is, because
the Minister Carvalho says this work will identify concrete solutions, as he said, to transform degraded areas into clean energy production hubs, promoting environmental requalification and creating new economic opportunities for these areas. Her ministry's statement concludes. That's fantastic news, and a relief for many people who suspect their local area of beauty will be blighted by a solar farm or something of that kind.
Exactly. I'm trying to find this, but unfortunately, here we go. It's in a place called Neles, but there's a whole mining area in Neles, again up north, where there's uranium poisoning on the ground. There's pollution in the waters. I mean, this is a great place to put loads and loads of
solar panels.
Obviously, a lot of these mining areas may not be perfect for wind, but they would be great for solar. Instead of chopping down all these beautiful cork forests and plastering areas with these plasticky Chinese solar panels, which we have no idea whether they're controlled by Beijing in the out,
Well, at least, Natasha, with all of these renewables being plastered across the countryside, it does give us a sustainable alternative to fossil fuels, and the consumers will no doubt feel the benefits soon of the.
Well, there's a really good move towards something called biomethane.
Oh yes, I'm very interested in this. This is such a good idea. Whilst we're on the matter,
it's fantastic, because the biomethane, the marvel of biomethane gas is that it can be kind of used straight into the pipes and all the infrastructure that's used by natural gas.
Yep, absolutely.
And there's really, the industry is saying, come on, let's just move on biomethane, because after all, it's just all the waste turned into gas.
Do you know, funnily enough, many years ago, I was looking at how Chinese villagers lived, and they were. I noticed in this beautiful documentary about rural Chinese life how it was that the villagers would have a gas pipe basically from their compost heap, which included all their waste, human and animal. And it creates methane, and they cooked on it. And I thought there is a beautiful circle of life. And here we see it, as you say, you've reported on this, boost biomethane investment. It's a no-brainer. It's such a good idea. And it seems that other parts of Europe are ahead on this, as you might imagine, because they've got bigger populations and bigger markets to invest into. But the sound is being made here in Portugal as well by the industry people who are behind this here in Portugal to invest. It's such a good idea. We have this waste, do we not? In the week where we're seeing what I think are quite ridiculous recycling machines for plastic bottles, this is a much better case for recycling, isn't it? Of all our compost, our human waste, our vegetable waste, and we can produce gas from it and then use that gas. What do you think of that recycling scheme in the supermarkets, Natasha?
Well, I mean, it's not going to touch my area because we don't have hypermarkets here, you know, and it's just utterly stupid and pointless because it doesn't have any glass.
Right. Yes.
What's the point? You know, you either do the whole thing or you don't do anything. So this to me just looks like I think Zero has already said that it's useless, but Quercus says it's marvelous.
It's a bit of greenwashing, and I'm sorry to sound cynical about this. I don't mean that we shouldn't love our planet and take care of it at all, but I don't know if it's the right thing to do. As I understand the system, they put a levy or exactly.
You buy expensive water in order to give it back, but why don't you buy other water and recycle it in the normal recycling cans? Why do you have to get? This is just for poor people that are always go like sort of minions, I suppose, or not minions, but go trudging every week to a hypermarket. But I mean, we don't have hypermarkets where I live. We just go to the local supermarket, and there will be nothing like this where we are. It'll only be in certain areas. You've
been spared the greenwash by the sound of it, and long may that continue going to local markets.
What we've got here, we've got a lovely communal compost heap, which is great. Yes. We've got lovely, and it's brilliant. I mean, the only thing that is terribly funny is that they don't you have to sign up to the scheme. Because when I heard about this communal compost heap, I rushed down with my compost and it was all padlocked. So I went into the camera and I had a baby kitten around my neck that I was bottle feeding. And I said, look, I've got no time for nonsense. I just need the, because the kitten would have woken up and I would have had to start feeding it. So I said, I don't want any nonsense. I just want to know the combination into the blinking compost. Oh, they said you've got to fill out loads of forms. I said, but this is ridiculous. All I want to do is throw my compost into the thing, and it's meant to be communal. It's not meant to be, exclusive. Yeah. Oh, no, we'll get the forms. So they rushed off to get the forms. It took them a long time, and the forms were asking me things like stupid things like how many people lived in my house. I put 10 because I was so fed up with it. Anyway, finally I got out of there with the combination and a plastic bucket. They said, oh, no, you must put all your compost in this bucket. I said, but I put it already in an aluminium bucket. Why do I want a plastic bucket?
They issue you with a bucket?
Yeah, they gave me a stupid bucket.
A government bucket.
And then the first time I poured the bucket into the compost heap, the top came off it and fell into the compost.
Oh, okay. So were you fined for that?
No, nobody's watching the compost because there's a padlock.
It sounds in theory like a fantastic idea, though. That's the sort of thing.
It is. So now all they need is a little sort of thing at the end of the compost heap to channel the gas back into our house.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, to connect with the biomethanist output of your local compost heap. Sounds like a move in the right direction, notwithstanding bureaucratic challenges there, Natasha. And I need to let you get back to your randy neighbour. So I will bon semana to you. And be careful on those roads out there. Thank you very much. And we'll see you again.
Bye-bye. Have a good week. Bye. Bye-bye.